We're going back to 1985, is that right?
That's correct, or 84.
84?
You were the second coach, Berkeley High lacrosse team. I was on that team. You took me under your wing right away. And, I really looked up to you. We played every day. You were there all the time. You gave us rides. You created a team. We had a huge sense of belonging on that team.
So as the term would be, I was a dropout.
So you moved out on your own at 16?
Yeah, right before I turned 17.
How does one feel confident enough to do that?
I don't think I knew what confidence was. So you start to look at these relationships, and they're all in the 40 to 50 year duration, without question. But for those friendships, opportunities wouldn't have come their way.
You value relationships in your life, and it seems like you really understand the familiarity in the relationships, that you not only value them, laud them, but you hire them, you work with them, you keep them close. There's not a lot of people that go away if they're real friends for you.
We fall down, but we get up.
Welcome back to Hometown Friends, the only podcast that's dedicated to exploring our most foundational friendships from the places we call home. I'm your host, Chandler Hoffman, and I've been a clinical psychologist for over 25 years. My professional expertise has focused on helping divorcing parents forge healthy relationships so that they can serve the needs of their children with less conflict. And this professional passion was developed through my own personal experience. My own parents' divorce helped me understand a child's perspective, and it motivated me to help this population. And when I reflect back on what helped me the most, it was my friends and their families that helped me cope. My gratitude for these friendships has become an obsession, and my kids are now calling me a friendship nerd. I just love talking to people about their experiences of friendship, and this podcast has given me a platform to share this obsession with you. On this episode, I talked to Phil Tagami, who's an executive, investor, politician, and land developer. He's the CEO of the California Commercial and Investment Group and the managing general partner of the California Capital Group. Phil, with his business partners and the thousands of employees that he hired, redeveloped landmark properties in Oakland, California, including the Liberty House, the Fox Theater, the Rotunda Building, and he was awarded the rights to redevelop the Oakland Army Base. He has served on multiple city and state commissions, including the Oakland Planning Commission, the Port of Oakland, the World Trade Commission, and the California State Lottery Commission. Phil's career has been marked by significant achievements, and his journey has also been intertwined with controversy. Over the last 9 years, he's been entangled in a highly publicized legal battle with the city of Oakland at both the state and federal level, which was recently concluded at the California Supreme Court. But before all this, he was a high school dropout and my high school lacrosse coach. His story, like everyone else's, is never completely told through the media, and I'm not a journalist, so this episode will not even address this controversy, even though Phil and I spent a few hours talking with each other. This podcast is about friendship, and I edited this conversation down to share some essential elements of the conversation with a man that I have a lot of gratitude for, because 40 years ago, he coached a bunch of high school kids and helped us create an experience of togetherness and belonging. He not only coached our team as a young man himself, he supported my teammates in other significant ways by giving them rides, letting them sleep on his couch, and finding them jobs. We hear how Phil himself became a lacrosse player and how his own family experiences led to his professional motivations and ingenuity. Phil shares how he learned from his friends' families, which I believe is a hallmark of the hometown friendships in general. Phil will tell us how chance relationships led to business partnerships and ultimately his current financial success. Throughout his life, Phil has focused on friendship, sustaining relationships, and community involvement. And you'll hear him say that his success is due to many other people, which is such an important statement to make, especially from those in the privileged class. I'm sure many people will take issue with me centering Phil, and although I do not personally understand all of his business practices, I do know that many will appreciate hearing from him, especially my teammates and others who know him personally and professionally. Either way, I invite you to comment and let me know what you think, and I hope you get to know a slightly different side of a man I'm calling my hometown coach, Phil Tagami. Phil Tagami, welcome to the Hometown Friend podcast.
Thank you, sir. Challenge, good to see you.
It's great to see you again. I have so much gratitude for you, Phil. I've thought about you a lot over my life since I was a teenager and on the Berkeley High lacrosse team. And, no one knows if somebody else is thinking about them. And I certainly didn't tell you I was thinking about you. Obviously, I've kept track of you, and which is what hometown friends do, actually. They keep track of people as you go through, and especially your career and your life. And I'm really curious about your life today, but I want to start with some gratitude. You were the second coach for the Berkeley High lacrosse team, I was on that team. I couldn't stay off that team because it was the hottest thing at Berkeley High. All my friends were on that. And you volunteered, Phil, I don't know, 5 times a week. We played every day. You were there all the time. You gave us rides. You showed up on time. You organized us. You created a team that we felt very, very connected, and we had a huge sense of belonging on that team. And that team did have and does have friends that I have kept touch with, that I have stayed in touch with, that are some of the most important people in my life. And I don't know the kind of person I would have been without that experience, without those people. I wasn't a great player, but you were a defenseman. I was a defenseman. You believed in me, and I felt it. And the truth is, by the time we ended that season, or the 2 seasons we played together, or you coached and I played, I wasn't a starter, but I felt a part of that team. And I remember how hyped you were. Like you took me under your wing right away, and you were, I was short and not, muscular or anything. And you were a defenseman, and I wanted, I really looked up to you. Just your dedication to the community at a very young age. And I've reflected on this, that you're 3 years older than us, Phil. You were a kid yourself. I'm so grateful, and I know all of my teammates were grateful for you.
Well, thank you for those kind words. We're going back to 1985, is that right?
That's correct, or 84.
84. I was living on McKinley Street, if I'm not mistaken, and I remember seeing guys throwing the ball around and had to pull over, and I had my lacrosse equipment in the back of my truck, and got my stick out and came out on the field to see what was going on. As you may know, I was a Berkeley High student, but not a Berkeley High graduate, because I left Berkeley High my senior year, which was 1983. So as the term would be, I was a dropout. But I played lacrosse for Skyline High School because Berkeley High School didn't have a team. So I was living on my own in Berkeley. So my junior and senior year, I would say that school kind of took second position to working and, quite frankly, playing lacrosse. And so I would leave Berkeley High usually around 1:30 to make it to Skyline by 3 o'clock to be on the field and ready to play lacrosse. And I could have and should have finished my high school. And I didn't have the parental supervision, but I was recalcitrant. So I would say it was probably equally my fault. In fact, I'll take full responsibility. And I think the pitch really came to me from John Bell and Reese Howell of "You should coach us." So the thinking in my head was, maybe by coaching the game, I can become a little bit better myself. And it'll be the extra training I need. And plus, I enjoyed the game. And it's a give back, right? A little service.
There's so many questions that I have and curious about how you even learned to play lacrosse, because it's an East Coast sport and it was new to the West Coast, of course.
So when I was in junior high, my older brother came home one day with a lacrosse stick. And being the younger brother, I was like, it took like 20 minutes for me to go like, I want to do this too. And my brother was like, no, it's the high school team. And, but it was a club because it wasn't accepted by Oakland Unified School District as a varsity sport or as a sanctioned sport. It was just a club. So I was in the 7th grade, and my parents were like, if you want to save your money to buy a lacrosse stick, you can do this. So I saved up my $27, I think it was, to buy my first quick stick lacrosse stick, which was, you didn't get a choice of color. I think it looked like a gold curtain rod with a black plastic head on it, to come out and play. And I showed up on a Saturday and participated, and they were all bigger, older kids. I hadn't had my growth spurt yet at that time, but it was fine. And it was a good experience. And it was great. All coaches were volunteers. Bruce had brought a bunch of local club players out, some of which I'm still very close with to this day.
We had a good goalie in Berkeley High, our friend Reese Howell, who recruited you to coach. He became an All-American. He was the first guest I had on this podcast.
But he definitely was a goofball. And I would say he was one of the reasons I like to show up. I have nothing but fond memories from that era, and maybe just a little regret that there were a couple players I could have put more time and energy into, who I have a lot of respect for today.
What were you going through in high school? Because you refer to this dropping out.
Parents were divorced, and I was working, and it's really one of those things where I had come from the East Coast. I'd gone to boarding school, and my parents had divorced, and I was given a scholarship to go there, which was St. James in Hagerstown, Maryland. And I was the outsider kid. I was the poor kid at a very wealthy, exclusive boarding school. And
Right.
I was generally accepted by some folks, but not others. So there were some good friends I made there. Some people I'm still in touch with.
Nice.
But I saw a whole different world that I'd never seen before. So as it related to relationships between husbands and wives, relationships between parents and their children, that I hadn't seen. So you're observing how other people are acting and saying, oh, different standards. And scholastically, also different standards. So you're at boarding school, so your intervals of time are filled, and there aren't distractions of television or other activities happening. You're basically in study hall, in class, doing chores, doing sports, or at chapel. Tough. I mean, the first thing I did before even buying a bed was I bought a drum set. So that shows you the lack of wisdom for the 16-year-old. It's like, don't have money to pay your bills, but you certainly have enough money you can put together to buy a drum set, right?
So you moved out on your own at 16?
Yeah, right before I turned 17.
How does one feel confident enough to do that?
I don't think I knew what confidence was.
Wow.
I think it was really more of a act and then realize the consequences later. There was no calculation of what the unintended consequences may be, right? And I would say that in life, without question, you're not going to accomplish anything of significance without a lot of help. So it takes there's always a lot of mentors and people to help you.
But I'm curious about what it was like growing up for you and what your experience of your hometown was. And then, of course, what your experience of your hometown is now.
Late 60s, early 70s, Oakland was, everyone I think was generally in the same financial circumstance, or from my vantage point, they were. So they were lower middle class to middle class, and very humble. You spend all your time with your friends playing pickup football or stickball. We call it strikeout in that era, or being at the schoolyard. You spend your time outside, and you would be home for dinner, if you will. You might stop in on the weekend and get a snack, but generally, if you were inside the house, that was maybe a problem.
Sounds like you had a real sense of community growing up in Oakland.
These relationships, if you go back and say, but for having the relationship with my friend Rob and Jeff and Alan, everyone who played lacrosse. So let's stop and think of these relationships. So, but for playing on Skyline High, I would have never met David Eade. Had I not met David Eade, I wouldn't have known that besides the job that I was going to try to get, which was at a gas station where Rob worked, by the way, Dave said, why would you work there when you could work at a health club and they pay you to basically work out? And I was like, okay. So I stopped there, got the job, and then you realize let's say at the time I just was turning 17. So Len Epstein, who owned the health club, has been my business partner in my real estate company for 32 years.
Amazing.
But I also worked for him, so we started the company in 92. So you have to go back and stop and go. So I had worked for him. And during the time I worked for him, I hired a guy named Mark McClure. Mark has been a business partner of mine since 2009, but we've been friends since way back when. So you start to look at these relationships, and they're all in the 40 to 50 year duration without question. But for those friendships, opportunities wouldn't have come their way.
They say this, right, in business and everything else. It's all about relationships. But what you're saying is like, it is all about relationships. Like every single one of those people is a long-term or at least a familiar face to you who would take your meeting just on the strength of knowing you. They wouldn't have had to do business with you, but they just took the meeting, kind of like what you're doing today, right? You come on this podcast because you know me.
Right. And so you think about all the things, all these milestone moments that are kind of life-changing, which is another reason to get off the couch, right? You got to be active and involved. You have to be on the field to pick up the loose ball, right?
When we feel a sense of belonging, we can do so much. And all the kids are really feeling, they feel different about that sense of connection and belonging. But when everybody feels a sense of belonging, which I think we did on the lacrosse team, at least the people that I've talked to, that you can achieve great things. But without that feeling, without everyone feeling a sense of belonging, the team or any organization can't produce or function at a level that's at its highest. It seems you really know what my sort of thesis is that these kinds of friendships are, I say this all the time, friendships are amazing no matter where they come from. But when you have these long relationships, they're different, I think, or at least most people say that they are sort of qualitatively different. Do you think so? Do you think that these friendships have a qualitative difference to them?
They're successful because they don't buy your bullshit. So when you are checked because you're in a room full of people who have known you since you wet your pants.
You've seen them fall down and get back up. You've seen them be, as you say, be vulnerable. You've seen them go through life changes. You said a couple things when we talked before, which was, friends are non-judgmental. They're loyal. They're reciprocal, which you've talked about. They're confidential. They're non-judgmental. That sticks out for me because that's kind of what you're talking about. That's a quality of friendship that is so critical to feeling close to somebody, that you're not judged by them, that you could actually make mistakes and fall down and, embarrass yourself.
I'm going to say that I have a slightly different read. So I would embrace my friends and consider them that, especially because they're judgmental, because they're going to give you a true reading of and they will be the finders of fact in your circumstance based on what you share with them, what they know and what they know from before. And so that's, I think, a positive. And then the question is, can they share their truth with you? Can you accept it and digest it and still embrace in friendship? So I won't even use forgiveness as much as I'll use the word acceptance. And the question would be, they might not render judgment until you've had fair play, meaning you've been able to respond, qualify the question or the judgment, if you will. It goes back to your friends when they're brought into your circle of trust, because that's an important element, and you expose yourself. They can say, that's horrible, or shame on you, or how could you do that? And you might proffer an excuse or a defense. And then the question is, if they still feel that way, they're entitled. You have to welcome it. Then the question is that a friendship ender or is it not? Right?
When the trust is really high, you're going to give that real weight, right? When you trust somebody cares about you, when you trust that they actually have known you or, for a long time, so they stuck with you, you're going to take that in much easier than you would by someone else's criticism, so to speak. Yeah. I'm interested in things when things go wrong with people, with us, who stands up for us? And in my experience, Phil, it's been my friends. So every single time that I've had a issue or when I've suffered in life, my friends have been there for me, certainly my family, but the people that have really helped me through some of the hardest times in my life have been my friends, and specifically my hometown friends, because like you said, they've known me, they're loyal to me, I'm loyal to them. There's something about, at least my experience, that has really proven that I couldn't make it out of really bad situations unless I had people giving me advice, cheering me on, and being non-judgmental. When I screwed up in life, and having friends to be there for you no matter what has been made all the difference in the world. It's allowed me to get back up and keep going. What about for you?
It's a constant. So my entire life, the first line of therapy, you could say self-medication. A lot of people will self-medicate. And you could say that could be food, drugs, or alcohol, or taking a walk, or going to the gym, or watching a movie, or whatever they may say self-medicating is. And then that second tier of friend to reach out, open yourself up to, hey, I have an issue, I have a problem, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling. And someone might be just there to listen, or someone might say, hey, get your head out of your ass. What's wrong with you? How about this, this, and this? And so, and there's different people with different versions of therapy or suggestion of how you might want to go about what you're doing. And I'm going to say, unlicensed practitioners called friends. And now, can you take the advice? So just because advice is given, will you take the advice? Will you give it a chance?
You value relationships in your life. And it seems like you really understand the familiarity in the relationships, that you not only value them, laud them, but you hire them, you work with them, you keep them close. There's not a lot of people that go away if they're real friends for you. You made a difference in my life. You've made a difference in my teammates' lives. I knew you came from this area. I knew that the friends were important to you. You've always kept in touch with people. You've told some great stories on here. You've made the connection between small moments that friends made a difference to you to big things that you've done in your life. I'm just curious if you have any last words or reflections on either this conversation or the idea that hometown friends are the foundational. It's how we learn how to be human beings, from my perspective. What do you think?
That's good. I'll try to stay brief, or we can go for another hour. No, I'll say, number one, these examples that we grow up around, we observe. That's one of the ways we learn. So you're watching how your friends act and behave, watching how they handle adversity and experience. Those are all very important things. breaking down the insecurities of not being able to talk about what you may be experiencing, thinking, or feeling, and then building those bonds of trust because those are people who've experienced many of the same things you have, do make it easier. And then the question is, can you keep them? So I have a lot of people I know who don't have any friendships that go beyond a half a dozen years. And
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that I can identify 20 people without hesitation that I've known for more than 40 years, and in some cases 50 years. And I think that's a testament to them. I'll take some credit, but
Yeah.
they certainly get their share of it because they've maintained that relationship and then friendship too. Nothing worth doing or creating, you do it by yourself, right? We expect, we have high expectations of those who are in our circle, our friends, and a part of our community. We hold them to a very high standard, higher standard than the people who aren't, because we let them in our houses and our minds and our hearts. And so, in that regard, I would say I'm glad I can pass that test, right? And it's a standard that's sometimes not convenient to live up to, but I'm glad it's there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we can have friends that hold us accountable. I'm glad that we have friends that we've known for a long, long time. I'm glad that when they do, we've lost some of our friends and we miss those friends, and we get to mourn with the friends that are still here. And in my mind, we have gratitude for the ones that are here. We take advantage of the ones that are here. We cultivate them, and then we're in the moment with them.
We
I love
celebrate
it.
them when they're here. We
Yes.
celebrate them when they're not here, and sometimes it gives us an excuse to gather and misbehave, right? So
I
I would
love
say
it. Let's gather.
right, right. There's always
I,
good wine and cigars close by, and will say when I see pictures on social media of some of my former players smoking and drinking, I always say, like, where was my invitation?
well, I'd love to get together, have a glass of wine with you, Phil. Maybe get some of our lacrosse buddies back together and relive the old times of playing Berkeley High lacrosse together. And again, thank you for your time.
It's my
Thank you
pleasure.
for your service. Thank you for your kind words. I do appreciate it. I did appreciate being on your team. I did appreciate you coaching us. I've appreciated your time today. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. We'll talk more later.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. This conversation covered some really important topics around the value of relationships in general and friendships specifically. One inspiring part was when Phil mentioned that the relationships he formed as a 17-year-old kid led to business relationships in his future. A story that didn't make it into the episode was that when Phil was working at that health club, he was cleaning toilets and taking out the trash one night when he met the man who owned the building, and that chance meeting led to his first opportunity to scale a janitorial business, and ultimately led to the formation of his real estate investment company. This story exemplifies how seemingly random encounters or working any job can lead to unforeseen opportunities in life. And I think it's so important for today's youth and anyone looking to improve their life to consider this. Another topic that I want to revisit is the idea of having friends who we trust enough to embrace their criticism. Psychological research consistently shows that the most growth promoting friendships uniquely combine unconditional positive regard with authentic feedback. Good friends help us grow when they can effectively point out our blind spots and when the trust is so high that's built on shared history and previous support. I recently went to my friend Reese, the same guy who recruited Phil to coach our lacrosse team, to ask for some feedback about whether or not I should continue to produce this podcast. He listened to all my complaints, and then he asked what I loved about doing this project. After hearing me light up about all the positive feelings I have about talking to others about friendship, he reminded me that anything worth doing takes a massive amount of effort, and that although I thought I had been working hard, I could do more to improve, grow, and learn. This feedback was so effective. as it was delivered with so much love and support, and it helped me refocus on the learning process and embrace the efforts and resources that I was already expending. Having this kind of friend helps us grow because they're both emotionally supportive by listening to us, and yet they challenge us to be our best. Do you have a friend like this? One who has given you some tough feedback or criticism? If so, let us know by commenting below or sending us an email listed in the show notes. If you've appreciated this show, give us a 5-star review and take a moment to like, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned and stay connected.
We fall down, but we get up.